Blog Talk Radio.
This is Mike Mooneyham.
Sorry about that, folks. The theme didn't want to start up. Let me go start the theme.
This is Tyson Dean, and you're kicking it into WSE Lounge with Jason and Brian here all the latest on wrestling and soap and all your entertainment service. Hey, this is Bob Well, guess what? You're listening to the WSE Lounge. Hello, everyone. Papa Stu, the Maestro of Wrestling here, and you're listening to the WSE Lounge. Hey, y'all, we're Johnny Dixie, and you're listening to the WSE Lounge. Hey, guys, it's country recording artist Katie Bell Agent, and you're listening to WSE Lounge. This is country music singer Amanda Joe, and you are listening to the WSE Lounge. You're 88th Street, and you're listening to your WSE Lounge. Hello, this is Peter Bobby Hughes, one of the Wolf Family Midnight Express. You listen to me and Brian and Jason, WSE Lounge. This is Frank Henry. Hey guys, I'm Robert Palmer Watkins, and I'm doing Quartermain on General Hospital, and you are listening to the WSE Lounge. This is Tommy Blanchard, and you are listening to the WSE Lounge.
Hello again, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the WSE Lounge. I'm Jason Boyd, along with my co-host, Brian Vaughn. At this time, we would like to welcome Supreme Court Justice. He's your most qualified candidate for Election Day, May 24th, 2016 in Clayton County, Georgia. He is Judge Stephen N. Knight. Welcome to the show, Judge.
Yes. Hey, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Jason and Brian. Stephen Knight, your most qualified candidate for Superior Court Judge in Clayton County, Georgia. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being on, sir. It's a great honor.
All right, I appreciate it, and definitely thank you.
Folks, before we get into this, I just want to let you know that to give you an example of what kind of man Judge Stephen Knight is, this past Saturday he was at Central Spanish Seventh-day Adventist Church with my good friend Danny Nagel, and he was answering questions for the youth about laws and interacting with police officers and what they should do and what they shouldn't do. And I have to say, Judge, that Stephen, that was a great turnout this past Saturday.
Yeah, well, definitely, I appreciate you for being there and seeing what I do, and I want to thank Danny Nagel for being there as well and putting on that production. What I wanted to let your listeners know is that wasn't the first time that I've done that program with Danny Nagel at the church. I did it last year, and it's based on a curriculum that I created, basically teaching people how to properly interact with the police. I was an auxiliary police officer in New York City. There are certain things that people need to understand, especially the young people, about how to properly interact with law enforcement officers, for not only their safety, officer safety, but the public safety at large.
Absolutely. And Judge Knight, we would like to say that both of us live in Clayton County. So yeah. I'm the type. I'm not going to tell you who I vote for, but you got a pretty good chance, if you know what I mean.
Well, I appreciate you. What I want to say to you, Jason, is that I am the most qualified candidate for Superior Court Judge, and it's not just a catch line or a tag phrase. It's a fact. I am the only candidate who is running to replace Judge Matthew Simmons. Judge Matt Simmons is retiring, and so is Judge Deborah Benefield. There are 2 seats that will become vacant and that are up for election, which is already underway. Started on Monday, May 2nd. Will continue until 5 p.m. today. And then again, early voting continues next week and through next weekend. And then the election day is May 24th. Why am I the most qualified candidate out of myself and the other 2 who actually has had a trial, a serious felony trial, not only as a former prosecutor in Judge Matthew Simmons' courtroom, but as a defense attorney in several courtrooms in the state of Georgia and specifically in Clayton County. The other 2 candidates do not have serious felony trial experience. There's major felonies in Georgia, 7 major felonies like murder, rape, aggravated child molestation, armed robbery. These are examples of major felonies.
Yes.
I'm the only person who understands that those major felonies are done in superior court, and I've done them as a assistant district attorney in that courtroom with a heavy caseload of about 150 cases or so on average per month. And so this is not the time to play around and to experiment and for on-the-job training. This is time for someone to hit the ground running who has the experience from every angle to get the job done. The other 2 candidates are saying, look at me, I want to be a judge, but it's not time to play around with people's life, liberty, and freedom. We need someone ready on day one, and that someone is Stephen Knights, your most qualified candidate. That's a fact.
Now, I've seen
right.
your resume. I've seen your resume, Judge Knights. Why don't you tell the people a little more about your very impressive resume?
Well, I appreciate you, and thank you very much. I want people to be aware that this is not a situation where I am new to the legal system. My father was a judge, so I grew up seeing my father rule on cases, practice judicial discretion, practice judicial sensibility, and rule effectively, fair and impartially. So I've seen that from the father figure in my home, knowing the person that I know as my father and knowing the person I know as the judge. So I got really solid upbringing from there. Then, with that upbringing that my parents instilled in me, I was able to graduate high school in 3 years at the age of 16. I was able to graduate college, John Jay College of Criminal Justice, majoring in criminology and psychology in 3 years at age 19. I was able to work as a police officer with the New York City Police Department, learning how to be effective on the street level as a law enforcement officer. I was able to work at a place called the Administration for Children's Services as a child protective specialist, investigating instances of child abuse and neglect in New York City and reporting directly to a family court judge with reports, court-ordered investigative reports, outlining whether a person should indeed be reunited with their child or whether they have to take further steps to reunite or whether their parental rights will be terminated. So I dealt in New York, there's family court specifically. So I dealt with family court and family law issues directly in the 1990s. And so with that type of initial background, I also worked at a place called Northside Center for Child Development, right, in New York City. Now, these agencies and those experiences are comparable agencies to what we have here in Georgia. Like the Administration for Children's Services is the same organization or agency, state agency, as DFACS is in Georgia, right, just to give you an example. Now, I went away to law school. Law school is 3 years. I excelled in law school, and I graduated law school in 2 years. Stuck around and did because I wanted to get more exposure and experience, and did the Innocence Project as well as the Washtenaw County Public Defender's Office. I met my wife, Keisha Knights, who is a lawyer right there in Forest Park, Georgia, the owner of the Knights Law Group, and so we've been embedded in the community for 10 years plus. I met her there, and in law school in Michigan, we relocated. Keisha's from Georgia. We relocated to Georgia, and immediately, 1 week after relocating and purchasing our home in Clayton County, I became a solicitor general, assistant solicitor general in Clayton County. I then moved on to the Griffin Judicial Circuit, where I became an assistant district attorney specializing in drug cases, serious felony drug cases like trafficking, sale, possession with intent, right? And I did that with Fayette, Spalding, Pike, and Upson counties. And what distinguishes me with that particular job in my career is that I'm the only person, once again, why I'm the most qualified, the only person who has dealt with civil asset forfeiture cases. Most lawyers don't know what that is, and certainly the other two candidates in my race has never had a civil asset forfeiture hearing or trial. And those are facts. You can look that up in the clerk's office in Clayton County. They've never done one of those. I then came back to Clayton County as a senior litigation assistant district attorney in 2009, and I prosecuted people charged with all major felonies: murder, armed robbery, rape, aggravated child molestation, aggravated sodomy. You name the serious felony, I have had the trial in Clayton County on that major felony. I prosecuted fairly, and I was effective, and my track record shows that. In 2012, I was appointed as a magistrate court judge right here in Clayton County. So I've done every level there is to do, from policing to prosecuting to being a judge, and I was even a defense attorney. So I've literally sat in every seat there is to sit in the courtroom. And also, Superior Court is 75 to 80% criminal felonies. I am the only person ready to hit the ground running on day one. This is not time to play around. I keep stressing that because Clayton County has been the laughingstock for several things.
Yes,
we know that they're, so
true.
I don't want Clayton County to be the laughingstock with a judge who doesn't know what she may be doing. My other two opponents, they do not know how serious felonies are dealt with. One of them was a district attorney who never tried a serious felony case. And
well,
those are
wow.
you can look that up in the clerk's office. Her name may have been as the district attorney, but the assistants tried the cases. She never actually had a trial that she was the lead prosecutor, and that's a fact. The other person who's in the race with me is using her role from a different position to translate that to being a judge. It does not work that way. I'm also a college professor. I'm an excellent college professor. I teach on the undergraduate and graduate levels. I've been teaching for almost 12 years now. And so I'm a great college professor. That does not make me a good preacher. I can't say because I'm a good college professor I'm a great preacher, can I? It doesn't translate.
No, it doesn't. You're right.
So if what she's doing is saying that she's done one thing and then saying because she's done that one thing, it makes her good at being a superior court judge. It does not. It does not translate. She has not had the caseload that a superior court judge has had. I've had about 150 cases on average a month with a trial partner who had the same amount of cases, which is around 300 cases a month, felonies, and I was in that courtroom. Fact about that courtroom, there's only about 4 days, 3 to 4 days out of the month that are dedicated to civil. The other days in the month, the other 3 to 3.5 weeks, felonies, criminal felonies. Imagine someone being charged with a murder, and there are complicated issues that the judge needs to rule on, whether it's a motion, a hearing, or the actual trial, and one of my other two opponents, God forbid, is the judge. What do we expect, for them to take recesses and go down the hall and ask other judges for advice every 15 minutes? Or do you want someone who's ready to go, because I've seen those issues, I've dealt with those issues, I'm immersed in the law daily, and I'm ready to go. This is not the time for on-the-job training. I want your listeners to understand how serious this is. There's no time for on-the-job training. You're going to create a backlog if you take recesses to learn the law on the job. Other judges can't help you because they have their own courtrooms to manage. We need someone who knows what's happening and is ready to go. That someone is Stephen Knights, your most qualified candidate. The polls are still open. People can vote today before 5 p.m. They can vote all next week, and certainly they can vote on May 24th, so that I can get in Superior Court and effectively make Clayton County proud and make Clayton County effective with a Superior Court judge who is sensible, understands the law, and can get the job done on day one and going forward.
And
well, Judge Knight, we've heard your experience, expertise in all these different fields, and I guess you could say that you're a judge of many seats, because you've sat in every seat there is, and the other candidates have not. And two of the questions that I wanted to ask you, and this kind of will give the voters a little expertise, insight to you as a judge. What is the strangest case that you've ever had as a judge?
Well, I've had, in magistrate court, we've of course had civil cases with neighbors disputing and filing protective orders against each other. In civil cases where there's business disputes. Those cases were, some of them were strange, but the majority of the strange cases that I've had were the felony cases, when I was referring back to my days as a district attorney. One of the strangest cases that I've had was a child molestation and a rape case, where the defendant who was charged was actually charged and had a trial and was found guilty previously, did 5 years in prison, and was on parole for another 5 years. When he got out on parole, he went ahead and married the victim that he molested, the victim's sister. He then moved into the home. Yes, he then moved into the home, of course. He's married. He moved into the home with his new wife, and his new wife had 3 children. Not by him, but one of whom, 2 boys and a girl. So for 3 years, he began to molest the daughter, his stepdaughter, now stepdaughter, for 3 years. Of course, threatened her brothers if she told. And then she became where the rape came in was that she then became an adult in the eyes of the law, and she, of course, child molestation is, of course, for a juvenile or minor, right? And so the rape came in, she became an adult, and so what happened was she eventually was able to tell one of her brothers, and her brother was able to help her come forward. And so that trial was so strange. We had a mistrial, meaning that there was something that happened during the trial where the judge had to rule that the case couldn't go forward. But then we retried the case for about a week or so, a little over a week, and got a guilty verdict, rightfully so, a solid conviction on that individual. And by far, that's one of the strangest cases that I've had. And again, that's Superior Court. That's Superior Court. The amount of motions and intricacies that we had during that trial and even before leading up to the trial with motions, that's not for someone who's faint of heart or who's not familiar with those complex issues. And that's Superior Court every day.
Well, I've got to say that is just one of the most bizarrest, strange. I don't even have words for it. I mean, that's just that is strange, Judge Knights. I mean, that's just crazy, and I don't know if you call it sadistic or sick or I don't know what you call it, but
a predator, Brian.
Yes, you do. I mean, yeah, you call it a sexual predator that, doesn't care, but I mean, that is just, I don't even know the words for that. I mean, that never heard of that, but I mean, folks, if you're voting on May 24th, you need to, or you're voting sooner, you need to go vote for Judge Stephen Knights because, as you can tell, he's done it all. I mean, when it comes to Superior Court, when it comes to being an officer, when it comes to the other seats that he's held, I mean, he's done it all. And Judge Knights, my other question that I have for you is, have you ever had a case where you felt that the defendant was guilty or not guilty, and the jury ruled opposite?
Yeah, well, definitely I have had a case, and I'll go to the roles of being a former prosecutor and also a defense attorney. So the role of a judge, and before I answer that, the role of a judge is, of course, to be fair and impartial and neutral. So sitting as a judge, any case that I've presided over, I do not have an opinion as to the person's whether they should win or lose. I simply have to listen to both sides and then apply the certain facts that they give me with the law. So personal feelings and opinions, that is not the role of a judge. You leave that out and you sensibly look at the facts of the case and does it fit with the law and rule based on those things. So that's the first thing. But as far as having a case where I thought someone was guilty or not guilty, because I've been on both sides as a defense attorney and as a prosecutor, I can attest to there's been some cases where during the course of a trial, a jury trial, I started to think, hey, wait a second, this person may indeed be not guilty, or on the other side, wait a second, maybe my client is in fact guilty. And so there's certain things that may be revealed during the course of a trial that may not be bargained for or known before the trial starts. So there's certainly been times where that has happened, and when that has happened, I've either, when I was a prosecutor, approached the defense attorney and speak with them to say, hey, can we try to resolve this before it goes to the jury for a verdict? And certainly as a defense attorney, went over to the prosecutor and see if we can work out a negotiation if that was what my client wanted me to do, or we just wait for the jury to make the decision. So there's certainly been times where that has happened, especially during the course of things that were revealed during a jury trial. So the one other thing to remember, the reason I keep stressing the jury trial piece is because there are going to be jury trials. If someone's charged with a murder and the offer is life in prison, no one is going to say, hey, I'm going to sign up for that offer. They're going to say, I want to go to trial. So there are going to be trials. They're going to be trials because the person's going to say, what do you, that's not an offer. I have nothing to lose, so I might as well go to trial. And I can tell you that those serious felonies like murder or like child molestation or aggravated child molestation or rape or armed robbery or any of those serious felonies that are done in Superior Court, I can tell you right now there will be trials because the offer is going to be serious prison time that the district attorney is going to offer the defendant. So you need a judge who understands that and is ready to deal with that on day one. And that's why I'm emphasizing how ready I am, because I was in Superior Court, specifically assigned to both Judge Benefield's courtroom and Judge Matthew Simmons' courtroom for a period of time as a district attorney, and I understand how those cases move. You don't want someone who will help to create a backlog because they're unaware or unsure or do not know what to do. You need someone who's effective and ready to go on day one, and that someone, again, is Stephen Knight, your most qualified candidate.
Sir, I got two other questions for you, and then I'm gonna let Jason ask you some more questions about your upcoming election. But before that, we're going to take a quick pause for a quick 6-second commercial break, and we'll be right back.
Hi, this is Eric Bishop, and you're listening to the WSE Lounge.
Okay, we are back. My other question I had for you, and this actually wasn't written down, but I thought of this as you was talking. Whenever you're a defense attorney or you're a lawyer representing your client or the defendant, of course, is there a law? Because I've seen this a lot on television and stuff. Is there a law of a certain wording that you have to use when you're questioning a witness? Because a lot of times if the wording is not correct on television, they'll say overruled, please restate what you're saying. Is there a law on that a certain wording has to be said?
Okay, yeah, that's an excellent question. Excellent question, Brian. So on television, like shows like Law and Order or maybe a movie, someone will jump up, one of the lawyers will jump up and they'll say objection. And then the judge may say overruled or sustained. So overruled means that the objection was not valid. Sustained means, yes, that's a valid objection. It's like the judge saying, I agree that the other lawyer should not have asked that question, so I agree, don't ask that question anymore. But what's not shown on TV is this. This is what has to happen in the courtroom. When someone objects, they have to give a legal basis for the objection, all right? You can't just say objection and stand there. You have to say objection and then what the objection is. So the rules of evidence says that there has to be some type of valid objection. One common objection is objection here, out-of-court statement offered for the truth of the matter asserted. So if I say in court, Brian told me that he saw Jason take the speakers out of the studio, right? So I say that. That means I said what Brian said. I said what someone else said.
Right.
Now, unless you're there in court to testify that my statement is hearsay because I heard you say something else, and you're not in court to say whether it's true or not. Right? So if I say objection, hearsay, and I'm the lawyer, then that's a valid objection. I gave a legal basis. The other side has to then respond as to why it's not hearsay or why that objection is not valid. And then the judge makes a ruling. So unlike on television, there has to be a legal basis for the objection. Otherwise, if a person jumps up and just says objection, then that's not valid in real life. You have to say why. Why.
Thank you for going in depth and answering that question for me. I've always wondered that, and thank you for taking the time to answer that for me. And my last question to you, and then I'll hand it over to Jason. How many years can you serve as a judge? Is there a certain period of time or not?
Okay, so a couple of things. So when I was in magistrate court, it was annual appointments. So every December, I'll be appointed for the following year, January through December. So that's indefinite. You can be appointed by the chief magistrate indefinitely. But for superior court, for example, it's 4-year terms. So every 4 years, there'll be another election, just like this is a presidential cycle. It'll be every 4 years for superior court. So every 4 years, you'll see Stephen Knights on the ballot for superior court judge. And then you can remain there until you retire, as Judge Simmons and Judge Benefield are doing.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, but if you're appointed, so just one more thing on that. If you're appointed, let's say on a federal level, then there can be a lifetime appointment. So as you can see, like the Supreme Court judges are appointed and they're there for life, and then other federal district court judges may be appointed for life as well. So it can be appointment or it can be election. And so superior court is election. 4-year terms.
Wow.
Okay, so I just want to point out to the fans what you were talking about earlier of how important the qualifications are. If, say, fans, it's a DUI trial or a possession of marijuana trial, the district attorney would go to the judge and say, hey, can we get maybe probation or something like that? And the judge would grant it or not. Superior Court, a little bit different. They usually take it to trial, and you need somebody with the definite qualifications to be able to rule on something like this. I just wanted to point that out. And another thing I noticed, Judge Knights took psychology. I think that is very important to be on the bench to know the human condition. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, well, definitely, Jason, I agree with you. One of the things is when you look at my background and my experience, I am a public servant who have interactions with people at every level. Psychology is important because we all know you can't judge a book by its cover. You can't just look at someone and say, I think this about them or I think that about them. You have to understand you have to understand the human condition. You have to understand that people have backgrounds and experiences that may cause them to be or act the way that they are. You have to understand that people go through situations or may be born into situations that may affect their entire life. And so part of what I do as well, I not only stopped at undergraduate school. Remember I mentioned I'm also a college professor. I teach criminal justice courses, legal studies, and sociology courses. Sociology and psychology are related disciplines because theories such as social learning theory, right, labeling theory, those theories are displayed every day in the courtroom. And so those are things you have to understand before you can make certain decisions, not only in society, but in the role of a judge. Those theories come into play and those things come into play on a regular basis. And so for me, when I say your most qualified candidate, I'm looking at being in the courtroom, right? Neither one of the other two candidates have had a caseload on a day in, day out, 12 months out of the year schedule in Superior Court. They do not understand the complexities, the people. Imagine dealing with 150 minimum people, either themselves directly or through their lawyer, different type of cases, different types of facts, different type of circumstances. These are people's lives that we're dealing with, and so we have to understand that, hey, not because a case landed on my desk when I was a prosecutor, for example, meant that that person was guilty. It could have mean to me that maybe the police didn't investigate properly, maybe there was mistaken identity, or maybe indeed they did actually commit a certain offense, and that's what investigating every case was about. Now, the role of a judge, different. You listen to the facts, you apply the law, and you move forward. And with the background that I'm coming with, not only with the psychology background, the sociology background, the life skills, but also the courtroom experiences.
Absolutely. And fans, if you're not familiar with Clayton County, he's got some pretty big shoes to fill in Judge Simmons. I wasn't aware that he was retiring, or Judge Deborah Benefield, but he is definitely qualified for this position, and I'm not sure the other two, I haven't heard really much about them. So Judge Knights, if you're from Clayton County, is definitely your candidate. And can you tell them about some of the practices you learned kind of as a district attorney from the defense side and from all sides of the bench?
Yes, definitely. So primarily learning how law enforcement works, because, again, 75 to 80% of cases in Superior Court are felonies. So I understand the role of a law enforcement officer. So when someone says the police messed up because they saw a 10-minute or 10-second video clip, then I have to say, I would like to know what the facts are fully, so I can fully make a determination, right? Because I know what law enforcement training is, and I know what standard operating procedures may be, because I've dealt with it directly in law enforcement and dealing with law enforcement afterwards. From a prosecutor's perspective, you cannot go in and assume that every case file that lands on your desk means that that person committed the offense. There has to be some additional investigation, whether it's by the investigators in the prosecutor's office, by yourself as the solicitor or district attorney. There has to be follow-ups. There's not just, this person is arrested, so they did it. There has to be thorough follow-up, and then you have to assess what is happening with that case, and then you have to turn over all of the evidence that you have by law to the defendant or through the defendant's attorney. As a district attorney, knowing that a person's life, freedom, and liberty is at stake, you have to be very careful to make sure that person's rights are protected and disclose evidence over to them and prosecute fairly. And that's what I did, prosecutor. As a judge, I had to manage the courtroom when cases started when the calendar was for 8 a.m., I got on the bench at 8 a.m. You have to be respectful of people's time. You can't be late. You cannot manage the courtroom effectively. You can't keep taking recesses to go do research or ask your colleagues. You have to know what you're doing and be prepared and ready. Also, when it's time for jury trials, what I've seen in my role as a prosecutor and defense attorney, I've seen that jurors have families. I have a wife. I have children. So there's daycare. There's picking up your children. There's child care. There's other issues. So you have to be mindful that court doesn't run very late into the night, or you're conscious of people. You have to be conscious of cases being backed up. You have to be conscious of other lawyers in the courtroom sitting there idly. So you have to be able to manage and schedule your calendar and be conscious of the people around you. These are the intricacies of being a judge. You can't just say, look at me, I'm a judge, I'm wearing a robe. You have to understand, like you mentioned, the human aspect, the psychology and the sociology of what's happening with people. Because otherwise, you'll have a full courtroom looking at you, upset and irate because they're sitting there not knowing what's going to happen next, being held up in the courtroom, their time being wasted, and then taking recesses to do research. Then you're creating a backlog, and we're trying to work on the opposite of that, moving cases effectively and efficiently, not backlogging cases. In my role as a defense attorney, both criminal defense and civil litigation, I understand the importance of protecting people. And that, hey, sometimes people may be wrongfully accused of a crime, or maybe sometimes people may not have done every crime that they're charged with, but they may have done some of the crimes, and that's where negotiating with the prosecutor comes along with. So understanding all of those aspects, which distinguishes me, once again, the other candidates do not have this vast amount of experience. They just do not. I don't care how many times they try to say one translates another. If I write letters, that doesn't mean that I'm an effective CEO of a company. One thing doesn't translate to another. You can find several examples. And what I want to tell your listeners is that it doesn't matter if you know someone or you like that person as a person. That doesn't matter. What matters is, can they do the job? I have a good friend who works on cars. I wouldn't let him fix my car. I would go to the mechanic. I like my friend, but the mechanic is more qualified to fix my car. Look for who's the most qualified, and that is Stephen Knights, your most qualified candidate for Superior Court judge.
I would like to say there's a lot of the popularity contest these days, and you see where it leads in society. So qualifications are a big part of period. And, you can't just wake up one day and say, hey, I want to be a judge. You need to be qualified for that position. And another thing that I do like is it seems you stand behind the police officers with everything that is going on. You're teaching people how to interact with the police officer, and you're teaching. I would guess you would teach them certain things they shouldn't do, and the things they can't do. Am I correct?
Yes. So here's my thing. Law enforcement is there to protect society, enforce the law, right? Provide services. There's roles of a police officer, and I know that from being one. So what I want the public to understand is that, yes, is there police brutality in the United States? Certainly. But guess what? 15 to 20 cases of police brutality that is publicized over and over on the media may not dictate in 4 years or so, the past 3 or 4 years, may not dictate every single police officer. So there's good and bad everything. There's good and bad teachers. There's good and bad doctors. There's good and bad dentists. So law enforcement, because there is police brutality, granted, those officers who abuse their power, they should be dealt with appropriately through the law.
Yeah.
However, those bad officers do not dictate every single police. And that would be unfair. If one dentist is bad, that doesn't mean all dentists are horrible and should be put down and mistreated. So my role is to educate society. Hey, look, this is the role of a law enforcement officer. And when I say police, it's broad, right? Sheriff, police, state trooper, federal agent, it's a broad term. So this is the role of a law enforcement or police officer. However, this is what we as a society can do when interacting with a police officer, a law enforcement officer, so that if there is a situation where that officer did something inappropriately, these are the steps that you can take to make sure that that officer is properly sanctioned. You make a complaint, there's an investigation, then you can go from there, whether it's a lawsuit or whatever else. I have filed lawsuits against law enforcement officers as a defense attorney and law enforcement agencies because I understand that there's good and bad in everything. So not only have I seen the good and I've seen the bad, but my role is not to sit there and complain about the few bad things that I've seen. My role is to let society know that, hey, there are steps you can take to not only educate yourself and your community, but this is the role of the law enforcement officer, and this is what they should and should not be doing. So it's both. Not only the public,
Judge Knight.
Yeah.
I don't want to interrupt you, but we got about 20 seconds, and the feed's going to cut us off on here. But
Sure.
want to thank you so much for being on, and please go on May 24th and elect Judge Stephen Knights as a Superior Court judge for Clayton County.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you. Stephen Knights, your most qualified candidate.